week. We've got a lot to get into. We're gonna get into debates. We're gonna get into Trump's health. We're gonna get into his comments on Fox News in the last couple of days or so. I think that we should start with what should be dominating the conversation, but sort of isn't. The vice presidential debate, one of the most hotly anticipated and hotly watched debates of the last few years for various different reasons. It was calm. It was policy focused for the most part. It was refreshingly quite boring, actually, all but for an audacious fly that landed on Mike Pence's head. Ed, let's start with you and the performance of Kamala Harris on the ticket alongside Joe Biden. I got the sense that she actively didn't really go in for the kill on Mike Pence on several occasions. There were a couple of occasions where she had an open door to make a really strong, firm point, and noticeably held back. Was that a missed opportunity or a smart play of caution, Ed?
When you look at that VP debate, it was a debate between fantasy and reality. The Democratic side pushing the truth and the Republican side pushing this world that they've been living in for the last few years. And when you look at what she was out there to do, it was to go out there, put a calm, reassuring, serious message in a time when that is what voters are looking for. And no one wanted the sort of debate that we saw between Trump and Biden. No one wanted that again. What people wanted was a serious policy discussion, and that's what they got. So the calm tone that we saw was exactly what people were looking for, and people felt reassured by. And you saw that in the polls afterwards that showed that Mike Pence had been thoroughly defeated.
Although we do have to extend him some credit, Ed, for participating in the way that he did, and for, I mean, it doesn't perhaps say too much, but for not interrupting, I guess. I suppose that's sort of where we're up to so far as presidential debates are concerned. Greg, I got the sense that Mike Pence treaded similarly carefully, really. There were perhaps a missed opportunity to put the record straight on some of Trump's misspeaks, perhaps, or things that Trump has done that in retrospect have been a bad idea. Was that a missed opportunity as well, Greg, or was it a similarly cautious approach that Mike Pence will have been going for?
No, I think he was cautious. The debate the week before was a complete disaster for everybody. And so, this week it was calm. It was, I think Mike Pence, that's his nature. He's a calm, deliberate person. And I think he made a lot of great points. The problem was, Kamala Harris came out, she's a good debater, I guess. She did well in the Democrat primary debates. There's always a difference between how she does in the debate. There's been a gap between how much the press loves Kamala and the electorate loves Kamala. So I don't, she connected with the press. The press, speaks highly of her, but I don't know that the electorate does. They didn't.
Well, that isn't what the polling said, though, is it? The next day, the polling the following morning was pretty favourable to her. People said she did a good job.
No, I think because she's a good message deliverer. Is that a word? But, the problem is she lied. She lied at least 6 times. She claimed the tax cuts and the Jobs Act only helped the richest Americans. Not true. She repeated the lie that Trump called neo-Nazis white supremacists in Charlottesville. Definitely not true. Been debunked. She claimed that the administration has this loyalty to Russia. Not true. She claimed that Biden has been very clear on fracking. Definitely not true. She referenced the Atlantic article, which has been debunked, and even the guy who wrote it admits that it was a complete, he didn't admit it was a complete hoax, but he basically backed away from it. The Atlantic article was just not true, and she referenced that. And then she attacked Trump for owing millions of dollars to whoever, to banks or whatever. That's in the public record. That's nothing. I mean,
but let's talk about
lie the whole time. It was gross. It was grotesque, actually.
Go on, Ed. Pick up on that.
We can't just leave that out there as if Mike Pence was this hero telling the truth. He wasn't. Kamala Harris went out there to prosecute Mike Pence and prosecute the Trump administration. That was the role that she was there to do. And if we want to talk about lies that were told during the vice presidential debate, let's talk about everything that Mike Pence mentioned. Firstly, he didn't answer a single straight question for the entire debate. He kept deflecting back to his talking points, but he made claims about coronavirus, the tax bill, the economy, Donald Trump's taxes. All of it got fact-checked, and all of it was found to have misleading or false information in it.
And really, it's no surprise. It's no surprise though, is it, that we sit here this morning having this conversation and we're talking about mistruths and we're talking about people perhaps skewing the truth and lying. That's just kind of where we're up to. In terms of let's just talk about each of your team members, right? So Edward, let's start with you. I thought that Kamala Harris looked. She did look pretty sharp. I mean, she is a prosecutor. There's no question. And I wonder if there's a real risk for Team Biden here that a strong performance and a strong personality from Kamala Harris actually serves to highlight the fact that Joe Biden doesn't really have any of those qualities.
It's not really that. People are reassured by a strong vice presidential candidate. We have to look at the fact that whichever individual is elected on 3rd of November, whoever the country picks will be the oldest president ever inaugurated in American history. So people want a vice presidential candidate who, in the event the worst case situation happens and whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden don't see out a full term, they could step into that position. And if you look at, again, the polls that were taken after the debate, the country looked at Kamala Harris's performance and they said she is the individual we would trust to step into that position if something happens.
Fair enough.
Get that reassurance from Mike Pence.
Fair enough. Okay, Greg, on Mike Pence and on the future. I mean, both of these people are going to be seeing themselves as future presidents. Mike Pence will certainly be one of those people. Will have his eye on 2024, no matter what happens in November. He didn't really strike me as having the same sort of star power and charisma that Donald Trump has. If we're looking to an heir to Trump, if we're looking for somebody who's going to be the successor to the momentum that Donald Trump has built up undeniably, I'm not sure if Mike Pence is it, is he?
Well, he definitely doesn't have the style that the president has. I mean, there's no doubt. And if anything, he's kind of a counterbalance to the president. And when he was chosen in 2016, it was clearly because the president was not viewed as a movement conservative or a philosophical conservative. He didn't really have a governing philosophy. So he really needed to bring someone on the ticket that was a proven movement conservative. Pence is evangelical. He's been a definitely like clearly a conservative that the right can look at as a traditional conservative. Sorry.
Okay. So
look, but now I think it's the opposite. Look,
let me ask you this question though, Greg. Who is it then? Who is, because we're tight on time. So just okay. as briefly as you can, Greg. Who is the heir to Trump then? Who is the figure that's going to emerge to take on his momentum?
It's too early. I think there's two groups. Because I just can't. I don't have like a Trump clone, that's for sure. But there's two groups right now. There's the heir to the Trump movement, which I would argue is maybe it's Mike Pompeo. There's a handful of others. The other is the other side is going back to the more traditional conservatives that have embraced the Trump movement, but I think go back to the more old school conservatives, Nikki Haley for sure. Sure. So you'll have a handful. I mean, I don't think there's any shortage of people that are.
And there's a big division in the Republican Party there, isn't there, to try to wade through, I guess, when it comes out in the wash. Let's move on to talk about the extraordinary week in Trump's health, if we can, chaps. I mean, it has been extraordinary, whichever way you look at it. I mean, there've been contradictions and uncertainties and strange behaviour and showmanship, whether you like those things or not. And we now have a pre-taped medical examination happening on Tucker Carlson's Fox News program. I mean, it has been utterly extraordinary. Greg, I'd put it to you that the behaviour that we've seen from Donald Trump this week, and particularly in the last 24 hours or so, is the behaviour not of a president, but of a reality TV performer.
Well, I'm not sure that the president ever claimed that he was going to be a traditional president, that fits that role. I mean, he's a different and unfiltered president. There's no doubt about that. So to say that, he's not acting like a president, or he's not, look, if you wanted that, vote for Mitt Romney or vote for Hillary Clinton, right? That he's just not that type. And this was his election was a complete rejection of traditional politics, both on the right and the left. The far left, well, actually not just the far left, but the entire Democrat Party has been fighting this. They refused a peaceful transition of power back in 2016. They've accused the president of all this garbage. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Barack Obama as president facilitated the transition as would be expected.
No. The left has been fighting the transition ever since. I mean, in 2016, he was elected.
Do you mean opposing? That's their job, though, isn't it? It's to oppose.
Well, no, not.
What's the job
one
of
thing
that's opponents, but to oppose.
Run free and fair elections. But I'm talking about after the election, Darryl, that they've been basically fighting the peaceful transition of power from election day in 2016. And so,
so you're talking about the impeachment process, etc.
Which started on day one. I mean, it basically started even before the inauguration. The Russia collusion hoax was just an insult, and so this has been going on for years.
What about Trump? What about Trump? I mean, look, we talk about transparency, don't we, with Trump, and we talk about him sort of being unpresidential in a way that is very appealing, and actually he was sort of put there to do that. And you're right to say that, Greg. I mean, that does seem to be the conclusion that you can draw from 2016, and yet there are contradictions in that, because that transparency doesn't translate into him being clear on when his last negative test for coronavirus was. When was his last negative test for coronavirus, and why can't he answer that question if he's so transparent?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the messaging was great on, especially last Saturday. There was a bit of confusion on that. I didn't catch the reference. Or, I didn't catch the Tucker Carlson thing, if that's what you're talking about, where he did or did not say his last test. I missed that. But look, the president, I mean, he doesn't like to answer questions. Sometimes he answers a different question. Ask him one thing and he tries to answer another.
We keep talking about him being so transparent, and then on the other hand, it's also frustrating because he isn't answering the questions. Ed, let me put this to you. Sorry, Greg.
It's not necessarily fair.
Ed, let me put this to you. Look, one thing that is for certain, though, is that we are talking about him. I mean, whether or not he is more reality TV star than president, sort of America knew that they were buying into that in 2016, Ed. We can't really deny that. And we are all players in his show, aren't we? And that could prove, as it has in the past for him, Ed, very successful here.
Donald Trump took Walter Reed Medical Center, a world-renowned, world-class facility, and turned it into the set of a reality TV show within a few days. No one's doubting that. But we have to look at what's gone on in the last week. As with everyone who wished Donald Trump a speedy recovery on the show, it's good to see that he listened to the doctors at Walter Reed instead of taking his own advice, injecting himself with bleach or using UV light or all of this nonsense that he's spouted, that he actually listened to doctors and he's claiming that treatment had worked. But last week we took a more somber tone on this show as the situation was developing and Joe Biden pulled negative ads from the airwaves. After taking that approach, I think we have to face what's gone on here and say Donald Trump would never have treated Joe Biden with the same sort of respect that we've seen in the last few days if the roles were reversed. Look at how he treated Hillary Clinton. Look at how he made fitness for office a huge part of his campaign strategy, accusing her of not being able to take office because of a bout of pneumonia. And now the American people have a real genuine question to ask about his performance over the last few days, because he turns the country into a reality show, but he is going on TV and rambling incoherently. Who is letting Donald Trump do these interviews? They're not showing he's strong. They're not showing he's recovered. He's rambling and coughing his way through them. He sounds unwell. People are asking questions about his mental fitness. He's not acting like a president. He's acting like everyone's drunk relative.
But again, Edward, look. Does that matter? I mean, you will see Trump as you will see him. It doesn't really matter. And if you're a fan, you'll see him on the television and you'll be delighted to see him back doing his thing. And if you're not, you're always going to find it unpalatable. I mean, are we moving the dial any?
It does matter because Donald Trump is in an incredibly powerful position, regardless of your political opinions, because he is president of the United States. And everything that he's doing, he claimed his experience with coronavirus and his thoughts in recent days are shaping his approach to the virus. And if that is true, if his claim that he learned a lot about it is true, that should not be reassuring. That should be worrying to the American people. Because, firstly, is he claiming he didn't learn anything from 200,000 plus Americans dying? But secondly, the healthcare Trump received at Walter Reed Medical Center was completely free, was world class. And the reason he got that level of treatment is because he's the president. Most Americans don't have access to affordable healthcare. So when we look at what Trump's saying, when we look at what Trump's doing, that's worrying.
Okay, go on.
Add that to lie number 7.
Go on, Greg,
Yeah, so that's definitely not true. I mean, he is the president. He is going to be treated differently. Presidents have always received especially important attention, whether it's healthcare, security, whatever else. But the American people have access to healthcare. That's definitely not true.
Affordable quality healthcare.
Of course, yes, definitely they do.
Okay, Let's
it's the best in the world. That's why people travel all over the world.
All right, let's talk about what happens next. Then let's talk about what happens next because we had. Let's play a clip of one of those appearances that Edward was talking about there, where Donald Trump spoke to, I think this is Hannity on Fox News on Friday morning. I think it is. This is what happened.
Well, I didn't even want to use them. Last time I had a big problem. They oscillated my mics when I had the one debate. We had 3 debates with Hillary, and on I think the first debate, on the first debate, they oscillated the mic.
Will you encourage your supporters to get out and vote early?
Well, I want them to vote, but I will say this. Absentee is okay because absentee ballots absentee ballots are fine.
Now, whether he should or shouldn't have done those interviews will remain a question. Edward makes the point that perhaps he shouldn't. But equally, we talk about wanting transparency from somebody and then not being transparent enough, and then there are complaints when he is too transparent and does too many interviews. One thing that we know for sure, Greg, is that Donald Trump wants to get back out on the campaign trail sooner rather than later, and it could be very, very soon that he gets back out to a rally. Yeah. If he isn't well enough, we hear those. You can hear in that clip there how unwell he is. The lasting effects of this virus are both well known and unknown, making it a very risky cocktail for Donald Trump. He is far from out of the woods yet, and the leader of the free world. That's a risk to him. It's a risk to America. It's a risk to the office. It feels like a terrible, terrible idea. And also, I wonder if, just as somebody who is supportive, Greg, if there is a concern on your part that there is an air of desperation here to Donald Trump wanting to get back onto the campaign trail.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of questions in there, but I don't think it's a sign of desperation. The president, this is his nature. Like he feeds off of connecting with people. He loves these rallies. That's just part of his deal. It's part of the campaign. I don't think that that we should read into anything. If he's not well, that in that interview, he sounds like he had a bit of a cough. Who knows? I'm not going to speculate on that, but I can say that, he is unfiltered. There's times where we all cringe and wish he didn't say something in an interview, but that's one of the reasons he was elected in 2016. It doesn't work for everybody, but this is an outcome president. If you look at what he's achieved, it's an absolute. It's fantastic for Americans. It doesn't message well with everybody. Sometimes he just says it like it is, and that doesn't connect with it surely doesn't connect with the progressive left. But look, this is a president who likes to get out on the campaign trail.
Fine, yeah.
Let
me ask you about the debate. Greg, I'm sorry, I'm time. I just want to ask you about the debate because there is a proposal for next week to have a virtual debate. He doesn't want to have that. Right. We're not quite sure when the debate will be. It's fair to say, though, isn't it, that Trump needs these debates more than Biden does. It's Trump who's got the ground to make up. And doesn't it feel like a mistake for Trump not to jump at any opportunity he has to do something like a debate, regardless of the form?
It's amazing how it flipped because, for a long time, there was a lot of speculation that Biden wouldn't do it, and Trump needs the debates. There's no doubt about it. If he wants to, to flip persuadables, that's a great forum to do it. But, he was debating against not just Vice President Biden, but he was debating against Chris Wallace in that first debate. So I think given that, if that was an example, Grant, look, I know it was a complete breakdown on both candidates' parts. It was a mess. Chris Wallace, it's not his fault that it broke down, but there were several moments, where it was Chris Wallace and Biden against Trump. I think he's a little cautious about that. So he'd rather be in a forum where it's open and he can be, mano a mano, as opposed to being controlled in a Zoom call or something. I get that.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Look, I don't think there's a lot of persuadables, Darryl. So I think that this is a turnout election.
Okay.
That's why he wants to get back on the trail in front of people and at a campaign rallies.
It's a fair point that the amount of persuadables is certainly up for question. Ed, very, very briefly, very, very tight on time. We have talked about Trump non-stop. It's the Trump show, this. We're all players in it. I don't know whether people have had their minds changed or what, but can this be regarded as a week where Biden even remotely cut through?
Probably not, but Joe Biden doesn't have to cut through in this situation. He can let Donald Trump keep running his mouth and embarrassing himself and burying the poll numbers. That's why Joe Biden is more than happy to have a second presidential debate. And that's why Donald Trump is running from it and afraid to go up there because he knows.
Fair enough. Listen, we're out of time, but we will return to our road to the White House next week. Edward Hardy, thank you very much. Greg Swenson, always enjoy it. I will look forward to I'll be sad when this is over, frankly.